Listeners, are you ready for your monthly literary adventure? We now have the BFF Book Club. Join us each month to explore a new book. After reading, connect with fellow book lovers and meet the author in a live interview. Can't make it live? Don't worry. We'll send you the recording. You can find all the upcoming book club selections at www.bookishflights.com/read/BFF book club. Hi, I'm Cara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights. In each episode, I chat with one bookish guest as we take some time to sample and savor the pairing recommendations from their bookish flight. We hope to give you suggestions to cultivate your TBR list and nurture your leisure time through books. In today's episode, we have author Cindy Steele to discuss our December BFF book club pick, Faking Christmas. Cindy was raised on a dairy farm in Idaho. She grew up singing Garth Brooks and Reba McEntire songs at the top of her lungs and learning to solve all of life's problems while milking cows and driving a tractor, rewriting happy endings every time. She married a cute Idaho boy and is the proud mother of two wild and sweet twin boys and a new baby girl. Congratulations! Which means she is also now a collector of bugs, sticks, rocks, and slobbery kisses. She loves making breakfast, baking, photography, reading a good book, and staying up way past her bedtime to craft stories that will hopefully make you smile. Welcome to the show, Cindy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Well, normally my first question is, tell us about who you are, because I feel like you're so much more than this bio, but this is a fantastic intro to you.
Oh, good. And as you were reading it, I was thinking I need to update that because my boys are a little older now. They don't bring the bugs and the sticks as much, but but yeah, I was raised in a small dairy farm in Idaho, and that kind of just was a great base for how I write my stories. I like the small town, kind of a ranchy, farmy type of a community. Even in Faking Christmas, I added that type of stuff in. I met my husband while we were both living in Utah for a bit. He was an Idaho boy, so we were attracted to each other because we were both Idaho kids. And anyway, got married and have three kids, and it's just been fun. Started writing in 2020.
Okay.
I wrote before that, but that's kind of when I got serious ready to publish and stuff. So anyway,
Yeah.
my first Christmas novella called A Christmas Spark in December of 2020. And then
Okay.
been a fun ride ever since.
Yeah, I was like, gosh, December of 2020 to 2024 in the world of publishing, that's a pretty short time.
Yeah.
I feel like from having talked to other authors, usually it's a very long road.
Yeah. It's been quick, and it just the timing just fit. Everything just hit right about then for some reason. I've always wanted to be a writer, but just the way things go with your family life and kids, and we were moving around quite a bit for a while there, and it was just the timing of everything and meeting the right people to get me in the right spot to do something. I don't know. It was just interesting how it all actually came about, but
It sounds a bit like serendipity.
a little bit, yeah.
Things
You
just
work
kind of
hard at the same time, but you're ready. So you're ready for it when it comes, and then it just, I don't know, everything just aligned finally.
Yeah. Well, what have you learned about yourself through writing?
Um, that you can do hard things. That's really is. It's a great career. But there's just a lot of ups and downs with it. But ultimately, I learned that I can finish a book. I never thought I could because I was always the type of person that had lots of different starts of a book.
Yeah.
I'd get these ideas and I'd be excited and I'd write a chapter or something or a little bit of a scene, and then I'd be so excited and then I'd put it away and I would forget about, I just I didn't have the drive to continue I didn't have the skill set to finish a book, I don't think actually, but just this process of learning and the skills to figure out how to finish something and how to push yourself to finish something. It's been definitely something I've learned.
Yeah. That resonates with me so much about being so excited to start something. This is why my mom is very crafty, but I think I am not. And I'll buy it and I'll get really excited to do it. And then I'm like, the moment I get the first kind of draft, let's say, out there, I'm like, and yeah, I don't want to go back and do any more with it. Like I'm kind of over it. But then,
Yeah.
and so I ditch it, and then I have all these like half-started crafts around my house.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
But
that was me too. I'm that same way. So yeah, learning to like just finish and get done and it's been a process. I still learn it. Every book I'm like, how did I do that last time? I don't remember how I finished a book. I don't remember. But
yeah, well, I imagine your days are also very busy with three kids. Do you guys live on a dairy farm now?
no, no, I just grew up. So we live out kind of in the country
Sure.
outside of Idaho Falls, kind of a bigger city in Idaho, but yeah, no cows or anything. But
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking like that's another thing to manage, right? Like that's a whole other job in itself.
it was a great way to grow up. I don't want to do that life, but it was fun. But
Yeah.
I have like my two boys go to school, but my little girl's at home. So yeah, my writing time at the moment is pretty limited to nap times and things like that. But yeah, it's just a process every day, figuring out how to do it.
Yeah. I think that we learn so much though from having our kids, right, of time management and being efficient and knowing like, okay, I have this nap window, so here's what I, need to try to get done in whatever, 90 minutes or whatever that is.
Yeah, for sure. I do think I was talking to my sister about that not too long ago. It's about I think the busier you are, the better you are at time management because
Hmm.
there was a time where I was pregnant, but both my kids were in school, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get so much done. And I didn't because I had so
Yeah.
much time to do it, I thought. And then all of a sudden the time was gone.
Yeah, I think the same way with like procrastination, right? Like when your deadline's like all of a sudden looming, you're absolutely, driven to get that thing
Yes.
done. You're like, okay, well, now I'm 2 days out. I better get
Yep.
this done.
Better get to it, I guess.
So, well, let's switch gears. Let's talk about faking Christmas a little bit. And that was one of the questions I had. I feel like you wrote that scene or the scenes of the book, right, of Vermont being at the Christmas tree like farm, and I was like, oh, or the lodge. You did that so well, and I'm like, has she visited this before?
Yes.
Okay.
So my husband was a travel nurse for
Okay.
like a year and a half before we settled where we are now. And we lived it was just the most magical time of my life, I think. But we were sent to Montpelier, Vermont, which is where I set this story. I put like a fictional lodge. It was a fictional lodge, but
Sure.
the town of Montpelier, we lived there for 3 months, right in the middle of the fall season, and then we left right before Christmas. So we kind of got to experience the fall and the beautiful winter, Christmassy hallmark feel of this town. Like it was so fun and totally and completely inspired the whole story. So I loved
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So it was very personal to me to write this in this setting, just because I'd lived it and was there, and it was just so fun to go back and remember all the fun details of that beautiful place.
Yeah. And you could tell. I mean, you could tell in your writing that it felt that personal touch. Like I was like, she
Oh,
has
God.
to have. And then I was like, well, I mean, she grew up in Idaho, so maybe it's just for like from being winters in Idaho, but I imagine Vermont is very different from Idaho. So I was like,
Yeah,
I
very different.
don't.
Yeah, but we were just there for a short time, and it just stole a huge piece of my heart. And so I was so excited when I could finagle it into a story, put it
Yeah.
into
And
put
now
it.
you've got like this little travel memoir in a way, right? That you can
Oh, a
remember
little
it
bit.
by.
Yeah. There's some part in there where they're walking the streets of Montpelier, and I used to do that when I was there. Like I'd go for a walk or with my boys, and there's like little stores they went into, and like the tree farm they went to. Like that was a real place, and I loved it. I'd go there like every week with my boys, and so anyway, it was just so fun, very personal.
Yeah. So does he still do travel nursing? Are you guys still moving around?
No, he stopped. I made him stop while we had kids. I didn't.
Yeah.
I was kind of crazy to move like that, but yeah, so we're settled.
Yeah, I imagine that 3 month like time clock. We do about every 3 years, and sometimes that seems
Oh.
a little bit like every 3 months would be a lot.
Yeah, and we just traveled with like a third of our stuff, we rented out our house, and so it wasn't like but it was still like just finding a place to live that soon was hard, every 3 months just to find a new temporary spot in a new place you've never been was like kind of hard, but
Yeah.
yeah, it
I
was a
always
great
can
time. We had a blast, but
Yeah,
you know.
I always compare it to like putting everything in your life in a blender and then you spin it around and then you land in your next location and you have to put it all back together again.
Yep, yep. That's exactly what
So,
it is.
and then you just do it over. You just keep doing that cycle.
Yep, that's exactly.
Yep. So, well, what did you hope that readers would ponder as they were reading Faking Christmas, or what to think about themes?
Oh, so that just grew in so many ways. Obviously, she had lost her parent, and so that became a big overarching theme, with like dealing with grief and how we deal with grief and the different stages of grief through these different characters. They were all at different parts and different stages of their grief, and just I just wanted mostly I wanted people to take away hope, like the feeling of hope, even after a hard thing. And Miles went through hard things. Everybody goes through hard things. I just kind of wanted to bring in that universal feeling of hope, like it will get better, it can get better, you know what I mean? Obviously romance and like the joy of love and falling in love again and allowing yourself to fall in love and to put aside your prejudices and your like prideful moments and things like that. But anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I love that they were able to do that together. And I think there's something to be said about healing in community, right? I think a lot of times maybe you hold harder emotions in, right? Or things that it's too painful to talk about. But I love that they, through each other, found, like what they needed to kind of the pieces to put themselves back together.
Yeah, I like that too. And I that was important to me that they could be that for each other because I Olive had a hard time letting herself connect with anybody else, and I love that Miles finally broke her down enough that she could confide in him, like just through different things. Like I just like that he could be that for her when no one else really could at that moment in her life. So I think that was
Yeah.
kind of how it is. Like we were kind of people are put in our paths for different reasons and different times and seasons. And, a lot of times you can look back and think they were there for a reason. Like I needed them. So yeah, I like that idea for sure.
Yeah. And I think we tend to want to like muscle through things ourselves, right? Like you can be very independent, like I can do this and I can muscle through, but we can't do it alone.
Yeah. Yeah. We want to I think we can do it all ourselves and you don't need anybody. I'm fine, but
Yeah. Yeah, I
not
keep
always
pushing
that
everybody
fun.
away.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, well, are you working on any upcoming books or projects?
Yes, I have another series out called my Pride and Prank series. It's kind of a small town Idaho farm community. And I'm working on the last book of that, and hopefully it'll be out, hoping this next spring. But yeah, and then after that, I have another book called The One with the Kiss Cam. I've been toying with some fun ideas that I'm excited about. So I'll probably start working on the second in that standalone series. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine that you're always working on something, right? It's always moving into the next.
Uh-huh.
So,
And it's hard to because there's always a bright, shiny idea just off the way that just is so exciting to work on, but you just kind of have to navigate and learn to, you know, get the thing done you need to get done now. So you can.
yeah. Well, and how in the busyness of all of this between family and your writing, how do you find time to read in the day?
Oh, so I audiobooks. And that's really only like I do love audiobooks and I've loved them for a long time, but I always get in this weird book slump after I release a book. And I just released one this summer. And I was just in a weird book slump for a long time. And I'm finally coming out of it. So I've been doing some audiobooks, which has been really nice and just, getting me out of my head a bit.
Yeah, I feel like audiobooks are the game changer, right? It's like you can multitask and still read and still feel like you're accomplishing these things.
Yeah. And like home all day with the little baby, even just having for a little bit, just an adult talking to you, it's so nice. It's so weird, but just I'm having a conversation in my head with an adult. It feels nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had a friend message me. She has a new baby and she was like, "How?" She's like, "I feel like I'm nursing all day. How did you do this with three kids?" And I was like, "Books." Literally, I had like a stack where I would sit. I had audiobooks in the dark. I'm like, I inevitably can do anything longer when I'm reading and like kind of pleasantly distracted. I can sit for an hour and rock you all you want.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's what I feel too.
Yeah, well, you have been so gracious to bring a couple books with you today for a book flight. Can you tell us how you chose these books?
I just picked three books that have just kind of changed the way I want to look at writing and crafting a story, and books that have just changed, like just I've been able to fall in love with all these characters, and I've read them each multiple times. So that's
Yay. Okay,
what
so
I
what's the first one you brought?
the first one is my favorite book ever, which is called The Grand Sophie by Georgette Heyer. It's an old one, and I've only actually done the audio. I just brought this for a trophy one for my shelves, but the characters in this book are just so rich and fantastic and hilarious, and she's just a master at wit. The whole story should be like a play. I just want someone to make it into a play. The whole thing would be the best, funnest play to watch. So
And
that,
she's like the queen of historical romance, right?
yeah, she's so good. And I've read a few of her other ones, and they've been so enjoyable, but that one's just done something to my soul. And like I probably listened to it 50 times, bits of it, not the whole thing, but I'll go find
Yeah.
my favorite part, or I'll just stick it on. It's like an old pair of like jeans. If I'm just bored, I don't want to use like the brain power to start a new book. I'll just turn on one, and it's just like transports you. I just love it. But I learn something every time I listen to it. She's so good at her craft. It's just fun to listen to.
Yeah, historical romance is a genre I just discovered this fall. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm like Google, okay, what should I read? And I keep saying her name, so it's definitely on my list. So thank you.
Yeah, it's an older style for sure, but her wit is just perfect. It's so good. She's so good.
Awesome. Okay, so that was The Grand Sophie by Georgia. Is it Hayer? You said?
I think I've heard like on the audiobook they pronounce it hair, but in my head I
Okay.
say hair, but I don't know.
Okay. Perfect. Well, what's the second book you brought today?
Well, I don't know if you've read any Amy Harmon, but she is fantastic. And this is one of my very favorites of hers. It's called The Bird and the Sword. It's a fantasy, and I'm not usually huge into that, but Amy Harmon does a lot of romance in her fantasy, like, but they're just gritty. They're just the characters in this were so beautiful. And I don't know, it wasn't like this big. Sometimes you get into fantasy books and there's like 27 books and they're humongous. I like this is
It's a
like there's a
commitment.
duality. There's a second book, but it's not like this all-consuming will take you a year to get through type of a book. But the world was just so beautiful. It's like the most poetic writing. She's so good. And
Yeah.
the
She
romance
is amazing because I feel like she writes in multiple genres.
yeah, she just does whatever she wants, and I love her for it.
Yeah,
I want to be
absolutely.
her.
And I love that you said that it's only a duology because admittedly, I will sometimes steer away from a series if I know it's like a 6 or 7 book commitment because I just don't have time for that right now.
I don't always
So,
have the brain power, the bandwidth, at least with
yeah,
my life right now. I don't have the bandwidth to imagine doing that. But this is
yeah.
one I listen to this one a bunch too, like probably once a year. I just love the characters and the story is so pretty. So
Okay, wonderful. So that was The Bird and the Sword by Amy Harmon. And then what's the last book you brought today?
this is a fun one. It's actually a middle grade, but I don't think of it as middle grade. It's more like young adult, but it's just a fun adventure series. It's called The False Prince by Jennifer A. Nielsen. My husband listens to these too. Like the audio is fantastic. My husband, there's actually like 5 books now, but the ones I fell in love with were the first 3. But they're just so fun. Like kids can listen. You can listen to them in the car with your kids. But my husband loves them. Like they're just high adventure, but so fun. The main character is like a blast. He's so fun to be around. There's a little thread of romance that kind of get you, it's just there for
Hooked
you
a
for
little bit.
whoever needs it, which I need it. But anyways, I love it. They're just a fun adventure book.
Yeah,
Fun.
well, I'm always loving we take quite a few road trips as a family, so I'm always looking, on the lookout for audiobooks that we can do in the car. Like even if my kids are kind of pleasantly distracted, but you don't want like dropping, swear words or like
Yeah.
spicy
This is like
scenes or
a
something popping
thousand
up.
percent. Yeah, this is so clean and just fun, like high adventure. And the main character is just he's witty and he's kind of snarky. Like kids love him. Like he'd be great for teenagers.
Yeah.
Like he's fun and he's so cute. I could.
Okay, so that was The False Prince by Jennifer Nielsen.
Yep.
Well, what we'll do is we'll open this up now to anybody that has questions.
Hi, Cindy. You have been involved in several collaborations like Falling for Summer and then the Christmas Escapes. Are any other collaborations in the works right now?
Not with me right now. I might do it again sometime, but it takes me so long to write with my family lifestyle right now that I've got all these books I want to do on my own that I just like, because Rebel Summer took me my whole last year, and I just kind of I said yes on a whim, but it just takes so much time for me that for right now, since that's all I can get done, I just have some projects I want to do. So probably not for me for at least a while if I ever do go back to them. But they were so fun. I got a lot of such good friends from that and just had a blast working with all these ladies. But yeah, it just for me, I'm so slow at writing, so it takes me a while.
As a
But
follow-up to that, I haven't had anybody on outside of you that I think has done those collaboration projects. Like, how are they set up? How do they start?
no, the first one I was involved in was the Faking Christmas one. That was the Christmas Escape series.
Yeah.
And that just came about. There was four primarily for historical romance authors. That's what they primarily write. And they wanted to kind of break into doing some contemporaries. And so they invited like three rom-com authors, like kind of the sweet romance rom-com authors to help. And so we could kind of share audiences a bit. And so we just made this big collaboration. So I was just invited into this group. I didn't, I didn't really know anybody that well, but it ended up just being so fun and a great experience. But yeah, that group wasn't the books weren't connected. The only thing connecting us was just the theme of like each character in our books were escaping Christmas, and they were kind of all set on a different in a different part of the world, So some were in England and London and Paris, and some were on this in the States and stuff. So it was a really fun series to do. And then this Rebel Summer was part of the Falling for Summer series with most of all those same authors. We just had a lot of fun, decided to do it again. And this one we kind of connected the series. We had like an island that we made up, and all the people in our books were kind of friends, and we kind of had some crossovers and things like that. So it was a lot of fun, but a lot of work to do that. A lot of extra work on top of just writing the book. But I'm glad I did it. It was fun to try it and see this fun little world that we created. But yeah, I just for the next couple of years at least, I'm gonna kind of hunker down and get my ideas out of my head and onto paper, hopefully.
Yeah, I imagine creating in community, like you said, it's probably fantastic, but I could also see that being a lot of work, right? It's not, we're writing normally as such a solitary activity,
Yeah.
so it's really
Yeah.
switching
Mhm.
gears to do
Yeah.
that.
It just takes a lot of extra bandwidth. We have a group text that's just constantly going with between seven women. There's a lot of chatter all day. We have like these Google Docs that we're all adding to, or in the calendar, like, hey, my characters are here at this day. Who anybody else here? I'm doing a scene, who can I add in this scene or whatever? Like it was just very intertwined of things, and we all had to come, make decisions as a group and things like that, which is just good. And anyway, I love those ladies so much. It was a blast.
Hi there. So nice to meet you. I am curious about, so first I was surprised about the grief aspect of it, and it really hit home since my dad actually was in hospice last Christmas.
Oh.
So I thought I was entering a very lighthearted story, a romance story, and it really touched me. And you had so many points that were just visually appeasing to my memories.
Mm.
And wondering if you actually went through something like that in your family, without getting too personal for you, or if you witnessed somebody go through that kind of experience. And even with Miles and the loss of his girlfriend in high school, did those spark from your own personal experiences or just based off of other people?
So, I've lost grandparents and things like that, but I haven't lost somebody that close to me. But I've watched like my dad and mom go through losing their parents and stuff, and just the little things they say about, watching, like being in the same room when they pass, like these little things that just kind of, I kind of gather in my thoughts as I watch other people go through this grief. I mean, I was grieving too, but not to their extent. But and then with Miles, I just remember hearing about some skiing accidents like that, and there's been a few in our community from, over the years. It just rocks you, and just your heart just goes out, these little freak accident things that happen. And so really it's just things that have happened around me that I've kind of pulled from. But I think, man, grief is such a universal thing. And I know there's parts in that book that kind of came to me that wasn't, I knew that they weren't words from me, you know what I mean? Like it was like conversations would just all of a sudden come to me, and I'd stop and write them down. but they weren't necessarily my words, if that makes sense. Like, so like grief, like when you write in something like this, like grief, it's just you're able to understand it, even just processing through how she might be feeling, or like, and I didn't want it to be like her grief to be so raw and real. Like I wanted there to be some time that had passed. And so it was kind of this, she's still grieving, but she's also reprocessing and reformatting what her family is going through and her mom's new husband. And, it's just this process of change that we all like, it's hard to get into. We all want to cling to what we had in the past, but it's just this reawakening of like, it's different, but it doesn't have to be horrible. It can still be a beautiful process of change. So anyway, it was interesting writing that because I knew that it was going to be a rom-com, and I was very aware that I wanted to hold to that feel of a rom-com, but so I was nervous to bring in this grief aspect. So I really just tried to make it feel hopeful by the end, so it's, you go through this, but it's still beautiful and hopeful. And I think that's so much of what life is. We all go through this, but there's still hope, through everything.
I don't know if mine is a question or a comment or a little bit of both, but I wasn't able to get the paper copy where I live. So I purchased it on Kindle, and I purchased the audio version, which was fantastic. Like the narrator, I should say, did such a great job.
Oh, good.
And how you wove so many fun pieces into this book. Like you started with the letter, and I thought, like, I kept stopping and thinking, how did you come up with all of these wonderful ideas? And it felt like it was in my backyard because of the snow, the winter, the cabin, and the lumberjack. Like you really infused it with so many fun, witty aspects. So you have a very creative mind. Do you carry around like a notebook, or do you jot down notes? How do these ideas, do they just pop up? Like, what's your creative process, I guess?
Well, thank you, first of all. That's so nice of you. So I do have I have like a million notebooks, but I have to be careful writing stuff down because I'll put random things in one of 27 notebooks I've got lying. So I really just try to keep if I have a specific idea for something, I keep it in my notes app on my phone, and I can just, go there. But the thing with being creative is that the more you start, the more things come. And that's how all of my books start that way. I think that first draft or the first draft of a scene, I think, man, feels boring, but then you start getting ideas, or like, oh, but then I could do this. What if he said this instead? And then, like it just builds, like creativity builds upon itself. And it doesn't come to you necessarily unless you get involved and start doing it. You just got to do the thing and stuff comes. And I've known that with every one of my books. I think it's a pile of crap. And then, but then like you go back in that second time, that second pass through, and go, oh, but I could do that. Oh, I like this better. I can do this. Or what if he did this? Or what if there was an email? Like, what if, I wanted something, the email thing, I wanted a fun start, but it was so fun because at first, like, I was going to have him be like the principal or something, instead of they're both teachers. And then I was just like, oh, I don't like that. Power dynamics feels kind of weird. So anyway, it was just this process of like having all these ideas and just like taking and narrowing down, and then finally getting like they're both teachers. They're only teachers and they don't like each other or whatever, and so then once you had that, like let's see, like all the English, quips and all the English things they talked about just kind of came naturally because we'd kind of whittled down the plot to where it needed to be by that point. And so then things just could start coming, so anyway, it's just, writing is just this process of, because you could take a story anywhere you could take it, and you just have this big idea list, and then it's just kind of a process of like whittling it down to what purpose you want your story to serve, I guess, and what you're trying to say. But but yeah, it's always been fun. It was a fun book to write.
I'm so glad you asked that, Holly, because that was going to be one of my other ones too, about just like the witty banter and the laugh out loud moments. I love, it's like, I'm like, because I did audio as well. And I'm like, my kids probably think I'm nuts because I'm like cracking up in the kitchen by myself. Like, what is she doing? Or crying. And they're like, what's wrong? I'm like, it's just my book. I'm sorry. Like, But I love the witty banter, and I was just so impressed with that.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, they were fun. They had a good dynamic, so it was just easy kind of to pull from a little bit, that one, but
Yeah.
I liked it.
Okay. Melissa, you have a question?
Yeah. So, with the like English quotes and everything at the beginning of the chapters, I love that so much. So I was wondering, first of all, like, do you have a background in English lit or do you just love classical literature? I do not. I have a science background. And so now I'm like, "Oh, I need to go back and read these books. I am inspired. And in a similar vein, have you ever considered writing like an adventure book? Because now I need Miles's book. I'm fully invested. Like, what's happening with the pirate?
Oh, that's so funny. Well, first of all, with Miles, that book was actually inspired by this because I thought this would be the type of thing he would write. So this False Prince, if you want something that Miles would write, it would be that. So I liked English, but I didn't have anything like that. And I don't think I've even read all those books. Well, I don't know. I might have read them all. I don't remember. I knew I've read Jane Eyre once, and I just remember that line. I remember the reader I married him line, and that has always stuck with me. Um, but yeah, a lot of those I don't like study it or anything like that. So I remember I took a few weeks, it took me a long time to find the right quotes for each chapter. But I was going through Googling like, quotes from the Terminator, because I've never seen the Terminator either, quotes from things. Some books I knew, like Anne of Green Gables, and those ones I knew, and Pride and Prejudice and all those, but I really wanted every book, that was mentioned or movie. I wanted there to be a quote in the beginning. But yeah, so it took a lot of just research, really. But some I knew, but some, I definitely had to look up. I wish I was some sort of English aficionado, but I am not.
I'm impressed you can remember them. I was like, my brain wouldn't do it, which is why I have a notebook by where I sit and read. So, Tiffany, did you have a question?
Yes. First of all, I love this book, and Cindy, you'll probably get tired of how many times I message you about it. Just so you can get an idea, I read it 3 times this year, and 2 of them were in the same week back in May.
Oh,
So, anyways, um, I was very excited when you announced the special hardcover edition, and it's waiting for me at home when I get home finally. But I just want to like know about that, like more about that. Like, I know I read your post about like how it came to be, like you annotated a copy, and that was so fun. But like, were these like notes that you like had from when you were writing, or are they just things you went back and like read the book and you were like, oh yeah, that and that and that and that?
Mostly I just went back and reread it. I wanted to go through when I did the annotated copy for a giveaway last year. And people would message me and say, I would pay for something like this. And so I was like, well, it takes me way too long to do that. So I was just trying to think of a way to do something like that. And then my friend came up with the idea of the hardcover but I just went back through and just kind of read through the book and was just, but it was jogged a lot of memories. Like, oh, I put this in because of this, or oh yeah, I said this, but there's some things like, once I had to be a little bit careful about what I was putting in there in the notes because it is going to mass market. It was a different feel than when I was just scribbling stuff for the girl who ever won it. So I had to, cut some things out. But for the most part, it was just really fun to go back and relive a few things and also kind of give the audience a peek of like kind of the writing of a story and what takes place and the importance of editors. There's a few of them in there where I would talk about, I had it this way, my editors suggested I do this, and it was way better. And I'm so glad. There's editors help so much with the crafting of a story and getting out of your head and an outsider coming in and saying, what if, this doesn't feel right? What if we're doing this? So but a lot of memories of mine, a lot of like Vermont facts and things like that from when I lived there. But yeah, it was really fun to do. It was kind of a special project. I had a lot of fun doing it. So it feels like a lot of the readers have been liking it. So I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful edition. If you guys haven't seen it, head over to Cindy's Instagram page and check it out because it's beautiful. Turned out really good.
Oh, thank you. It was fun to do.
And Tiffany, I think that's the sign of a good book, right? Like you finish it and you literally start it again.
It was like I I listened to audiobooks while I was working, and so I listened to it, and then I ended up going on a trip with my friend, and she was like, "We should download an audiobook," and I was like, "Oh, okay, I know the perfect one." So basically, I just convert every single person. I've gotten already three other people to read it this year, so we're just converting the entire world
You,
to
you're
Baking Christmas.
the best.
Woo!
I'm gonna hire you for my marketing manager.
Please, I'm looking for a job. I'll do it.
Nikki commented about how I hope you don't mind, Nikki, that I'm sharing this for you, but it's the book that got her back into reading for enjoyment. And I think that's so important. I think as an adult, right? I think most of us were probably grew up readers. I think but then you kind of lose it, right? We go to school and then you can't, for at least for me, it was like I couldn't read leisure books when I was in school because all I would want to do would be to read the leisure book and not study. And so finding that book that makes you fall in love with reading again as an adult is really important.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've been struggling too, like kind of going through this reading slump. So it's been fun to kind of feel myself come out of that and get lost in a good book again. So it's been fun.
Admittedly, I don't always read rom-coms. And so I'm like, okay, because I sometimes feel like there seems so like superficial and the characters just seem really young to me. And I love that your characters in this novel, they had depth to them. And I think that's what drew me to your book is it was so much more than just this like, and there's nothing wrong with being young. We were all there one time. And I'm like, I'm not in that stage of my life where I want to read about that. And so I was just so drawn to this book because of that, the depth of the characters that you had. And it was fun and, lighthearted, but it touched on tougher topics. And so it was great. So thank you for writing these deeper characters.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. That's what I always try to do too, because I like that too. It kind of helps ground the story a bit, give it some more realistic qualities, I think. So
Yeah, it pulls you in and back to I think Melissa, you brought that point or about the letter. Was that you, Holly? Like just that initial part really hook you in the beginning of the story. I mean, you need that too to be like, okay, am I going to spend some time with this? And it just drew you right in.
Oh, good. Yeah, it was fun to do that. That was a fun email to write and have corrected.
Yeah, yeah.
I do have one question. And you might not get this all the time because you have children, but if you were to describe your like ideal writing environment, what does that look like for you? Is it like quiet? Are you listening to music? What does that look like for you?
Quiet for me. Music is so distracting. I listen to music while I'm thinking, like doing the dishes. Like for Rebel Summer, there was a big music playlist in that book. And I would listen like 70s music and I would listen to that while I was doing the dishes. That would kind of keep me in the zone. But when I'm writing, I like it quiet. I do like, I feel like I write better if I do white noise. I don't always think to do that, but just kind of puts the world out, a bit. Just the white noise helps. But yeah, some snacks. I don't know. I don't know. Just quiet house. And I usually write on the couch. I've got my computer on the couch with a pillow and a blanket. Well, I don't know. You don't want to get too warm because then you fall asleep. So you got to kind of keep yourself a little uncomfortable. But at the end, like when I'm close to finishing, I got to be at a desk because it's business time at that point. So I got to be sitting up and really uncomfortable so I can get it done.
I love that comment about being uncomfortable because it's so true, right? It's like you just sneeze. Sometimes at night I'm like, oh, okay, I really wanted to read, and I'm like, two pages in, but
Yeah,
like, okay,
for
gotta get
sure.
things done sometimes. But what are you reading next?
Um, well, I don't have my next one. I just finished two that I really enjoyed. I read The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. If you're looking for another Christmas book, that one was really fun. It's kind of like a Knives Out feel and rom-com, and I really liked it. It was fun. And then I also just finished a Sophie Cousins book. What is it called? The one I can't believe you're going out
Wait,
with
is it the new one?
Yeah, I
Is
think.
she really going out with
Yeah,
him? I
that
think that's what
one.
it's called.
Mm.
Yeah, I thought it was really sweet. It was more of a little bit more open door-ish, but still pretty fade to black. Not very, detailed or anything. So, but it was really good. I liked it.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the BFF Book Club with Cindy Steele about faking Christmas. If you'd like to join us next month, we are taking a turn to historical fiction about the first woman of Champagne, Veuve Clicquot. It's set in the early 1800s, and she defies Napoleon. There's themes of love, family, history, and courageous women. It's a fascinating story, and the title is Champagne Widows by Rebecca Rosenberg. You can head on over to the link in the show notes to register to join us on January 26th at 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.